Welcome to the Own Your Best Life podcast. I'm May Emson, your host, leadership and mindset coach. Here, we talk all things spiritual, mindset, business, leadership, and wellness for the modern seeker who wants to align their life with purpose and inspiration. We'll cover career changes, stress management, meditation, energy, intuition, and more. Each episode holds spiritual and practical tools to help you live a life of your wildest dreams without getting burnt out along the way. Ready to live a life on your own terms? This is the Own Your Best Life podcast. Welcome, friends, to episode number 80 of the Own Your Best Life podcast. Do you chalk up seemingly random occurrences to coincidence, or do you call them synchronicities? What is synchronicity? When we start living in the world of intangibles more than the world of tangibles, we often start seeing synchronicity appear. You may call them signs, or maybe you call them coincidences. Either way, we will discuss what synchronicities are and what they can mean to your life. So many of us achievers live our whole lives in our heads, rational, pragmatic, and driven to see results in our outer world where things seem to have some kind of order and they seem to make sense. And the internal world looks a lot more messy and confusing, so we tend not to go there as often. We don't want to make sense of what we don't fully understand, especially when we get more and more entrenched in our outer worlds. The world of achievement and tangibles makes sense, and it feels better there. We feel like we're experts there. The world of the inner psyche and emotions don't make as much sense, so we might feel inadequate. Synchronicity is defined by the Oxford Dictionary as the simultaneous occurrence of events which appear significantly related but have no discernible causal relationship. So modern psychology tells us that confirmation bias is at play here. That synchronicity is the product of confirmation bias, where you end up focusing more on the information that confirms what you already believe. And in essence, whatever you're looking for, you will find. Confirmation bias and synchronicity can still live together, because when we are truly present in life, the way I think about it is this: we are aware of the needs of the moment. We're aware of the facts. We're aware of the possible ways to interpret the facts in front of you. And when you are in that state of true awareness, you are living in greater flow with life. What do I mean by flow? When you're in flow, life appears to be one confirmation bias after another. Everything is a sign, not because you're connecting two things that have no connection, but because you are accepting two things that have no connection. You then become the common denominator. We think that synchronicities happen to us when in fact we also create them. And one of the ways that we often find synchronicities is when we give up this idea that we control everything in our lives. It's often when we're in a state of high emotional distress or transition that we see synchronicities appear. We ask for help from the universe when we are in dire need, and it is given. And for me, it comes most into play when I am in the energy of service. When I got my coaching certification at Columbia, I had to complete a research paper, written exam, and an oral exam. And the oral exam was to coach someone that I wouldn't meet until right before we had our session. And in this session, a faculty member and an International Coach Federation faculty member were in attendance, and it was going to be recorded. And I remember being prepared, but I was also really nervous. The night before the exam, I decided to meditate and to visualize my client. I had just finished reading a yoga journal article about a teacher that was on a retreat, and this teacher had taken a nap. And during the nap, she saw all these things in her sleep that her friends were doing. And when she woke up, it turned out that all of these things had actually occurred during the time that she was asleep. So I was bolstered by this affirming story, and I sat on my hotel bed. I propped a pillow underneath me, and I prepared to drop into my meditation. And I started seeing my client. She had dark hair. There was the color purple popping up into my vision, and then there was the name Rose. And I kind of left it at that after the meditation. And I meditated again the next morning, and I saw that a few more details emerged. She was Indian, and that her presenting issue would be anxiety. I had just started posting on Instagram then, and I remember quickly writing that out and posting it before I left for the morning. And as soon as I did this, I realized I would look like a fool when I walked in and found a tall blonde man with blue eyes as my client. And when I went into the main room with all the faculty and ICF faculty, they introduced themselves and said there must have been some memo because they were all wearing the color purple. I noticed it and just took it in. There was this nod from myself and the universe that, okay, this just happened. And so my oral exam was scheduled later. So I was taking a walk before my oral exam. And when I am nervous or I have lots of energy, I find that moving my body really helps me. What I was doing was trying to take a walk around this campus. So this was a Columbia program, but we weren't on campus in the city. It was north of the campus, outside. So there were some nice walking trails. And several months before, I had developed an eagle as a sign that I am supported. So I remember looking up at the sky thinking, if I could just see the sign right now, the eagle. But I couldn't tell if the birds I was seeing in the sky were eagles or if they were hawks, and they seemed quite far away. And I wanted one to come close as a sign of reassurance. And very rationally, I realized it wasn't going to happen because I was on this path with all these trees shrouding above me. So it was highly unlikely to see a bird fly underneath those trees. And as that thought kicked in, I gave up on the need to see the eagle, and I turned to walk back towards the building where I would have my oral exam. And right then and there, I saw this giant statue of an eagle in front of me, like enormous. I had never noticed it before, but it was right there in front of the building. And when I went inside, I met my client. She was Indian with dark hair. And during the coaching session, it came through that her core issue was her anxiety. So we finished up and we started chatting as we walked back to the main room. And as we were finishing our conversation, I went out on a limb and I told her, you might think I'm crazy, but I visualized you in my meditation last night and that your issue was going to be anxiety. And without skipping a beat, she looked at me and calmly said, we got your coach's bio last night. I intuitively knew it was either going to be you or Rose. And she asked me, how do I normally see things? Is it, clairvoyance, all of that. And without skipping a beat, out of all the people I could have met with and talked to about this, happened to be someone who got it. And you can check my Instagram post from that day. I think it's still on there. So what are some of those lessons there which I experienced, and how can that translate into your life? Well, one of the main ones is this. When we give up the need to see a sign or a synchronicity, they start to appear everywhere, right? When you decide to trust your intuition, you can decide to test it out and just start to see what happens. There's this idea of pattern recognition when you think about synchronicities. Repeating numbers are one of the common ones, like 111 or 444s or 333s. And when you look them up, you'll find that they mean different things when you start to see them. So pattern recognition itself is correlated to intelligence, higher intelligence. Maybe that makes you feel good if you decide that you see lots of patterns everywhere, right? To be able to see and connect the dots. Yet, if we have obsessive or constant pattern recognition, psychologists state that this can have parallels with schizophrenia. And so I'd like to offer that there is a middle way, right? Because I think that as we start to learn more and more about the world around us, we start to realize that there might be more and more that we don't know as well. So when you start to think about pattern recognition, I'm going to ask you, why do you want to recognize patterns? Why do you want to see behaviors or events as being related to either something you've done somewhere else or via someone else? And in many ways, the answer is because you want to have an ability to tap into the order of events that happen in the world. We want to create some kind of structure. We want to make sense of it all. And so how do we perceive two seemingly disparate events like signs or numbers or occurrences with what life is actually presenting to us? We make them into patterns. And one of the best ways for us to identify when patterns hold true or when they don't is to tie it to this idea of, is this helpful for me or not? In my coaching certification process, it was helpful for me to see that I was supported, even when I operated outside of where I felt safe or comfortable. In context, for me, heading into this world of human development was a scary thing when I was used to dealing with numbers, business, math, strategy. Yet the same way we use math as a language, we can also use the phenomena of spirit, the phenomena of the world, of energy as language. We can find strategy by connecting the dots in ways that others before haven't. Yet they make complete sense in hindsight. And so when you dive into the world of quantum physics, it actually supports the energetic world of interconnectedness. Things that are apart can actually have an effect on each other. And there have been experiments conducted that show this. If that is the case, why wouldn't we want to explore how synchronistic events can impact our daily lives and to what degree we want to utilize them for our good? In this black and white world, though, that we live in, we often ask ourselves if things are right or if they're wrong. Are synchronicities right or are they wrong? Science doesn't support synchronicities, but it does support quantum physics. And so as we ponder these questions, what stood out to me is that synchronicities are individual. These are your own experiences, and only you can really identify what you make things to mean. Many events are improbable by statistical standards, but they occur. You can make it mean that this is therefore possible for you too, or you can make it mean that it's not possible, it's never going to work, that the world has these kinds of interconnectedness, or you can think that the world doesn't. Either way, our belief actually precedes these events. And I'd like to share that it's not about being wrong or right because synchronicities occur in hindsight. They confirm what you already know to be true. So you don't need signs and synchronicities when you're taking action in this present moment, because you can identify what choices to make and how to proceed with the information from this present moment alone, with the facts. Yet what drives our decisions are often our values and our purpose, and these are intangibles. When we start to live our lives from this place of intangibles, we see that we might have to move before there is clear support that this is the path that we'd like to travel down. We say yes to a person, to a job, to an investment before we know if this is going to work. And similarly with synchronicities, we believe in them before we know that there is proof that this is true. This is why I like to triangulate to come to decisions. I like to stay out of the emotional drama and indecisiveness by purposely testing out confirmation bias, testing intuition, testing negativity bias. So what does that look like? So to test confirmation bias, I'll ask myself, what is the opposite of what I think? What's the opposite of this? Or I even ponder the worst case scenario. Right? If I'm about to make a decision, I'll write out all the possibilities of that thing going wrong or not being as connected as I believe to something else. And then I actually address them. It was the thought that my visualized coaching client could be a blonde male, not an Indian woman with dark hair, and then having some humor with the situation. That was me testing the confirmation bias. And so I started letting go of the need to be right. So just stay with me here. This idea that, okay, I've got this good feeling, we're going to do this thing, but I have some concerns. That's okay. Actually address them. And when you do that, you're actually not just operating alone solely based on what you're not sure is correct. Maybe that sign is a sign, but maybe you're going to still deal with an obstacle. And if you don't manage the obstacle, you could make it to mean that this was not going to work instead of very pragmatically just addressing the obstacle ahead of time. And so it allows us to actually be a little bit more free than we ever even believed to move forward if we're actually moving in tandem with all of these biases. And the other one is I'll test intuition. So I'll ask myself if there are facts that support what I want to do and why. So maybe I want to go with this gut feeling. And instead I look at the facts. Well, facts aren't necessarily numbers, although they can be. They can actually just be a logical order of events, such as I have this gut feeling that I want to be a writer, right? So if I have that gut feeling, if that's in my intuition, if it's coming through for me when I meditate, when I think about what I want to do with my life or things that I want to experience, I'll know if I want to be a writer, I have to write. Right? These are just a logical order of events. So then the next right thing to do becomes, okay, so what do writers do? They write. Okay, let's do that. If you want to be visionary in whatever work you do, a logical order of events could just be you have to go beyond where things might feel safe. And to apply it to that coaching situation where I was visualizing that client and her presenting issues, if I am coaching, anxiety very likely comes up as a common issue. So the facts also support it. Does it make it wrong or right, or this thing is true or not true, or those signs meant or didn't mean anything? It almost doesn't matter, right? So again, if we can let go of the need to be right, we're much more free in our clarity of thinking. You'll have more situations where you are operating from intuition, from seemingly unrelated events, yet still be moving forward with facts and feel good in the process. And also, the third thing I'll test, right, is this negativity bias. This is this idea of pushing back against that boundary of staying too safe, staying mired into the world of facts alone, but not just the world of facts as they support equal points of view, but the one that really overvalues negative events, right? Feeling that we really can't have a negative thing happen to us. So therefore, we spend more time in that world. So I'll ask myself, what do I want to learn from making this decision? And if this decision will help me learn that thing. You'll know that you're going to fail in the process. You know that there's some risk, but do you want to learn about failure in this way? And failure is the source of growth too, let's be clear. When we talk about really great environments of leadership or places where people thrive, the opportunity to fail and fail forward is present. And so again, let's make no mistake that you can somehow avoid failures by following synchronicities and signs, but it's really about what you make it to mean. And what decision you take will depend on what you're trying to learn in this process. So in the coaching situation, I wanted to learn, how do I dive into intuition? Right? I was testing that out. I wanted to see if what I visualized in my meditation was going to be accurate. I wanted to learn, what did it feel like to trust and to let the world respond accordingly. And I've had other synchronistic events occur, for example, where I started doing some research one night on retreat locations, and a client of mine emailed me the next day asking when I was going to host a retreat. Or meeting people who had bizarrely common stories to my own. And so much so that I've just started accepting synchronicities as a way of life, not unlike the way that I accept that if I live with an open heart and unconditional love, that people and events respond beautifully and that life is just much easier to live. And I'd like to offer that our beliefs are our own to evaluate, to test, to prove, to disprove. And you can decide that Santa Claus is real. and life is magical, or you can decide that life is magical. And it's not as much about whether something is real. It's about what you make it to mean and what you do with this information. And sometimes things are chance occurrences. Sometimes they are synchronicities. Sometimes we don't know exactly what happened, how to explain all the circumstances in our life. We just don't know. And all of these things can be true in any given situation. So no matter if you believe in or understand their cause, the question to focus on is what is needed from us in this given situation in order to simplify our ways of taking in all the information coming our way. Synchronicities provide a framework to show that you are supported in life through things beyond your control. Know what synchronicities start to appear in your life when you ask for help from a place of true service and connection. Let yourself be open to what appears, and then decide if you want to test the interconnectedness by using rational thought, by using knowledge of pattern recognition and biases before coming to a conclusion. Either way, if you notice a shift in your behavior where you once felt challenged or a sense of relief that comes through that serves you, allow it to be present. Allow yourself to notice if it serves you and the situation, to understand synchronicities in this new way. And you can keep using your life as this training ground to see what unfolds when you lean into these beliefs. This is a topic that I love. I think it is such a beautiful way for us to surrender even more, to be open to see what the universe has to deliver for us and what happens when we start to live life in this way. So I cannot wait to hear from you, to see what unfolds. And I have so many stories of the things that have started to occur as soon as I decided to let synchronicities not be some magical spiritual event that means that life is beautiful and working out for me. I let it mean that this is a natural course of life, and that I get to connect the dots, and I get to put the pieces together, and I get to lean in and see what is true for me and what isn't true for me as well. So I hope the same for you. And I really encourage you to take a minute each day to notice the things that are happening in your life, the synchronicities that may be appearing. And I'm pretty sure that as soon as you start to focus on it, you will notice more and more of these things occurring. So feel free to reach out and share them with me. I'd love to hear your stories as well. So have a good one, my friends. I will see you next week, and I will talk to you then. Thanks so much for joining us this week on Own Your Best Life. Make sure to subscribe to the show on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts so that you'll never miss a show. And while you're at it, can you please rate and review on iTunes? I would so appreciate it. Share it with a friend, take a screenshot of it, and tag @MayEmson. This helps continue to get the word out. For more show notes and resources, check out www.mayemson.com. You'll have all the links to everything you heard here today. Thanks so much for listening. It's time to own your best life.